down starting tomorrow. So we will be closing Aiken, Allendale, Bamberg, Barnwell, Beaufort, Berkeley, Calhoun, Charleston, Clarendon, Colleton, Darlington, Dillon, Dorchester, Florence, Georgetown, Hampton, Horry, Jasper, Lee, Lexington, Marion, Marlborough, Orangeburg, Richland, Sumter, and Williamsburg. So because we're going to be doing these evacuations, those school districts are closed. That also means those government county offices need to be closed as of tomorrow as well. We are doing this all to prepare for the evacuations that we will start. We will be starting evacuations tomorrow afternoon, so we ask that everybody start getting your things together that you have, start contacting your family, start thinking about where you're going to go and how you're going to go there. We will be putting in lane reversals as we do that. There will be certain evacuation routes you want to take. I would ask everybody to go to www.scemd.org. You will click at the top on Hurricane Matthew. Then you will click on Know Your Zone, and you'll type in your address. It will tell you exactly how you evacuate from the area that you're in. So that's extremely important that we want you to do that. I do think that while we are going to have 712 troopers that will be assisting tomorrow during the evacuations, we'll also have 1,543 other law enforcement officers, 1,400 plus local officers, local law enforcement. So we're looking at about 3,700 that are going to be on the roads to assist you, not counting the National Guardsmen. There will be comfort stations along the way, which will allow you to get water and also use the restroom if you need to. There are going to be, basically you're going to see National Guardsmen and law enforcement at all points as you make your evacuation through that process. It's not going to be a fast evacuation, but what we ask is that you be patient and understand that it could take up to several hours, but we are making all the plans to make sure that everyone is going to be able to move safely, move as quickly as possible, and get themselves out. What we ask is if you can leave early, do that. You know, the goal is always not to all leave at once. We're looking at probably doing that evacuation at 3 o'clock. That could change. But as of now, if things continue on as the way they are, it will be a 3 o'clock evaluation going forward. But like I said, we will confirm that tomorrow morning as we get more information, especially on our next call. I think we will be there. We have been asked to move residents from Charleston, and so for the Charleston evacuation, I want to thank Greenville County because they are giving us 235 regular school buses as well as 108 special needs school buses, which is going to allow us to move those residents from Charleston into the upstate as well. I believe I have covered everything. You know, the main thing I want to say is we've been through winter storms, we've been through a 1,000-year flood. A hurricane is different. And so I don't want anybody to look at any of the last few tragedies that we've gone through and think that this is similar. We need you to understand, get all of the paperwork that is important to you and make sure you take it. Make sure you notify your family and know where you're going because we want to make sure that you have a place to stop. This will be going into the weekend. So we ask that once you get to your destination, stay there. Once you get home, if you're in the Midlands, stay there, because the goal is to take as many cars off the roads as we can and to be as safe as we possibly can. What I will tell you is these storm surges are not to be messed with, so when you live on the coast, please heed caution and follow through with the evacuations that we ask you to do. When you're in the Midlands, be conscious of the fact we're going to have a lot of moving traffic. So as much as you can stay off the roads, that's helpful. That's why we're closing those government offices and the schools to make sure that we can handle that accordingly. And we will continue to give you updates on a regular basis so that you know what to expect and when to expect it. But South Carolina is strong. I am very proud of Team South Carolina. They are ready. We have dotted every I and crossed every T, and that doesn't mean there won't be hiccups, but we're ready, comfortable, and we know that everything's in place to go so that everybody can get to where they need to go safely. And with that, I will open it up with any questions that you may have.
Governor, what kind of equipment, supplies, things like that are planned to be moved to the coast and when?
So I know they've already asked for 1,700 sandbags to be sent to Georgetown. They've asked for the buses to go to Charleston. We're doing that. DOT is getting all of their equipment in place as needed, and then I think also National Guard, they've made sure that they have any of our aircrafts that are needed. They've leaned on Tennessee and Kentucky to get those.
Governor, why tomorrow afternoon? Why start then?
Because when we look at the timeline, the amount of time it's going to take to move 1 million+ people off the coast, that's the way we can do it safely, and that's the way we can do it to where everybody is most comfortable. That is the key. Is we want to be safe, but we also want to make sure it's not a frustrating situation for people. So that doesn't mean that you will get to where you want to go quickly. It will take several hours, but what we are asking is look at 100 miles from the coast and make sure you get out of harm's way, and we'll do that. And so really closing the schools is because we're going to need shelters. Closing the government offices is to take the traffic off the roads. What we don't want is a big bottleneck at Malfunction Junction tomorrow, and that would very well happen if we had everybody coming through at that time.
At what point do you plan on closing or reversing lanes on I-26, and will that be from Charleston to where?
I'll let Director Smith.
The plan now is to go to a lane reversal tomorrow at 3 p.m. We'll have assets in place, and for the I-26 corridor, US 21 in Beaufort, as well as US 278 in Hilton Head. Those lanes will be reversed.
Senator Haley, what's going to be the protocol or the process for removing college students, definitely for those who aren't from this area?
Well, I think all university presidents, they always make their recommendations based on what the school districts do. So I think you'll see that a lot of universities will follow that. They have in the past. They've either followed government offices or they've followed school districts, and so I would expect them to do the same.
Governor, there's the USC-Georgia game on Saturday night. Do you have any input or say in that, or is that a complete decision based on the SEC and USC?
It's a complete decision based on the schools, but as of now, I can't imagine that happening. But certainly, we're going to continue to watch this. Look, I would love nothing more than to see this just suddenly, take a right-hand turn and go out to sea. But, as it looks right now, we're looking at Friday night into Saturday, or Friday afternoon into Saturday being pretty brutal.
Governor, is this at this point, is it a voluntary evacuation of coastal communities or mandatory?
So we don't do voluntary or mandatory anymore. An evacuation is an evacuation. So if we tell you that we want you to realize that if things stay the same, we're going to look at a 3 o'clock evacuation, that is what it is. So what we are asking is, if you can leave sooner, make sure you have a full tank. I can't say that enough. But also, we don't want a whole surge of moving at the same time. So that's why we're trying to get this information out now.
Governor, there's still some uncertainty in the storm track. Are you any way worried that maybe you're calling an evacuation everything a little bit too early at this thing, because this thing hasn't started that kind of final movement yet?
So what we have seen is that it's hugging that coastline pretty good, and a lot of our South Carolina coast is exposed. We will let you know if that 3 o'clock is pulled back. I will not hesitate pulling back on the 3 o'clock, but right now, based on what we know now, it's the responsible thing to do to go ahead and focus on those evacuations. I hope that I can pull that back tomorrow, but I want people to be prepared. I want them to know what I know when I know it, and so this is the best way to communicate to the citizens of the state what we think needs to happen.
Do you have any worries that you may end up with a situation like Florida? Do you think the lane reversals and everything are going to help out with the massive backups and the 24 hours people spend on the highway during Florida? Without question.
I mean, if you talk to DOT or any of our law enforcement, Director Smith with DPS, everybody has done their homework. Everybody knows exactly how this needs to be done. The reversals will start right at 3 o'clock should we go forward. I have faith and confidence in my team and in all that we've discussed with multiple conference calls that we're ready to go.
Are there shelters being set up or activated?
Yes, so you will see multiple shelters set up, and we'll have more information on that tomorrow.
So, Governor, what advice would you give the elderly or those who may not have access to social media, or they may be sick or shut in? Any advice that?
So this is where I'm going to ask South Carolinians to really do what we've always done. It's neighbors taking care of neighbors. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go and look down your street, make sure that you've touched base with your neighbors, your church members, anyone that you know of that is has challenges, is elderly, with small children, any sort of thing like that. And let's take time to not just focus on our families, but focus on everybody else's to get the word out. I think if we do that, it's been amazing how through 2 winter storms and a 1,000-year flood and all of that, that we've managed to really take care of each other. And so I would ask the same thing, is that we make sure that we look out for everyone as we go forward and make sure that everyone has a game plan.
So have you officially declared a state of emergency, and are we asking the federal government to start staging help, that sort of thing?
So we officially verbally declared it at 7:30 this morning, and yes, we've already gone into all of the state of emergency processes that we need to do going forward, including getting the federal assets that we need to assist.
Governor, are the buses that you're using, are they for assisting with the medical evacuations?
No. Do you want to? I think there's already transportation for the medical evacuations.
Yeah, the hospitals contract for that directly.
Yeah.
So the buses are just for folks who don't have transportation?
Yes, this is to get people out of Charleston that don't have transportation. And so we are trying to get in front of it, and we've been working with the county. That's what they think they need. And so that was the reason for making sure that we got the buses there so that we can go ahead and start moving those people out.
And they're working with them to figure out who needs it then, I guess.
Yes, usually the local emergency management directors deal directly on who needs to get out, where the shelters are, what they need to do, and that was the request of Charleston, was that we get them 250 buses.
And I assume that you're also encouraging businesses in the low country along the coast to close their doors?
You know, I mean, when we do an evacuation of the coastal counties, and that very much is meant for everyone. That's for businesses, that's for anyone. And you know, I know the first thought is, well, maybe this storm will shift or maybe something else will happen. I hope that too, but you don't want to get caught in this. When we're looking at you know, surges this high and we're looking at winds at this level, this is not something that we want to play with. And the other thing I would tell everyone is, if you don't get out in time, you might actually get stuck. And I think that's worst case scenario, is to be stuck on the coast and have no place to go because you didn't meet the evacuation time.
Governor, you mentioned that this isn't a winter storm or a flood. Are you worried because it's been so long since South Carolina's had a storm of this magnitude threaten it, and we've had, what, 1 million people, I think, move in here in the last 16 years? Are you worried that there's some people that won't take this seriously, or as seriously as we should?
So from our Team South Carolina point of view, in terms of all the cabinet agencies and the other government agencies that we're working with, we have literally done a tabletop every year waiting for this moment. And in that tabletop, what we've talked about especially is the population growth. And so through our conference calls that we've had this time, everything has been with the population growth involved in the conversations, whether it's lane reversals, whether it's school closings, whether it's the buses. So we have accounted for all of that. And you know, it's amazing. We've practiced this for 6 years, and now we'll put it into place. But I want everybody to understand, this is not the same as the flood. This is not the same as the winter storm. This is going to be its own challenge to itself. And so I'd ask everybody to not take this lightly, because this is something that, you know, South Carolina has a strong faith. We are great when it comes to prayer, and so that's what I'll be doing all night, hoping this shifts. But at this point, we do need to be smart and be cautious, and that's why we're making the actions that we are.
And what do you do if people refuse to leave?
I mean, you know, we just are going to continue to encourage them to leave, you know, and that's why I want people talking to their neighbors, and that's why I want people calling their families. Is I don't want to have to sit there and talk about any fatalities or anybody that we couldn't get out. You know, our goal is going to be to save everybody that we can. What I will tell those people who are thinking about not leaving is, if you think you can take care of yourself, then at least think about my law enforcement and my National Guardsmen, because they are going to have to be the ones that go out and try and get you, and you are putting their lives at stake when you allow that to happen just because you refuse to leave. Okay, any other questions?
Are the National Guard going to be touring these coastal communities later in the week to check and see who might be staying behind?
You will see all of our law enforcement work together to make sure that, one, we get the evacuation to happen properly. Two, who's left behind. We'll be working very closely with our counties on who is left behind, and then making sure that we do that. I know that they're going to stop, Department of Natural Resources is going to stop any boating starting tomorrow morning as well. And so they're going to work closely with the Coast Guard. Everything and anything that we need to be doing, we are basically making sure gets done. And I can't thank all of the agencies enough, because when it comes to situations like this, they coordinate, they work hard, they focus on safety, and that's what's happened. And so all we ask is the residents focus on safety too.